Well, you banged on blue, and assuming I could see that maybe it's the way I presented it. All right. Some of us are very upset that no one knows about these kind of things. I'll be honest with you. I also really, I never liked this guy who's giving the broadcast. I never liked him. I find him, um, arrogant and grating to listen to. But I don't really understand why they're doing what they're doing. Is it where they're barred from telling people? Is it they're barred from telling what our one of our corporation that we subsidize is doing in the country he's talking about? Is this that's why maybe there was ego in the way I said it. The information can't be what you send me to the blue about. Well, because I'm criticizing this, but I don't see any need to do this except to be. Well, I guess the news corporations will be penalized by this gigantic agribusiness we have, or they'll be penalized by our government because our tax dollars pay for it. Is that the reason? It's very frustrating to hear a guy like this speak with such this sort of. I mean, it is frustrating. I don't know why they're doing this. I mean, it was an hour-long show about India without mentioning this. He's talking about political reforms. This can't be of interest to Americans unless he wants to talk about what one of our major capital formations is doing that's entirely subsidized by us. But that's what they were. That is what they were trying to. One of the things they were trying to stop in Seattle that no one knew about. It's also a prime example of what we here as citizens we have we can stop it because it's one of our corporations doing it. Why is it blue? Does everybody know this? Trying to use a simple way to describe it. We have a state subsidized agricultural sector here. The corporation's brand is called Monsanto. What they've done in India is a good example of why, in what way in which we share responsibility for what's happened in the global south. It's not of interest to people at the universities. It's not apparently not of interest to people telling this hour-long program unless it's they're silently saying please comment because we can't say anything about a corporation that large that you pay for. Our tax dollars subsidize it. How are they able to get into India? There's a word we need to learn, which is neoliberalism. It's a project that's been going forward. There really is. It's based on what's called the Washington Consensus about how developing societies should restructure their economy to supply in a different way. They open the markets. This is under the heading of what's called free trade. They open the markets of India. They removed limits on foreign direct investments. They also empowered Monsanto to act as a lender, which is you can't do that, but you should be able to do that. And they entered India. When the structural adjustment was they have to grow crops for export. And when Monsanto does that, they use the same model that Coke and Pepsi would use. That is, instead of the growing a variety, farmers growing a variety of different crops, they use what's called monocropping, which is they find the most popular, what sells the best, and they want to grow just that. The problem is, in order to grow something that's not meant to grow there, or the farmers know where different kinds of, say, corn will grow. In order to grow one type of thing on that larger scale, there's two things that are needed. One is an incredible amount of water. That's why our agro corporation, although it's transnational, it's based here, and we subsidize it. They're using 70% of the water that's being used right now, but using it up so fast that people don't have water to drink in places like India. In addition, because you can't do that monocropping without an incredible amount of pesticides, which on their own are bad, but also Monsanto makes them very expensive. But since under the free trade rules they were empowered to act as a lender, what they're able to do is they basically have all the farmers there trapped in a kind of debt spiral. That's what I understand it. That's the cause of 500,000 farmer suicides. But it's an example of what happens when people use this word free trade. They really should wash their mouth out with soap and go do their homework. This kind of thing is a kind of it's to use the how could you I like what Vandana Shiva said about the corporation based here that's done this. She said that the way they must be thinking. She said, number one, they'd have to have brutal minds to do this with something like to do what they're doing. But second of all, she said it just must be their profits are so much higher in their mind than human life or the earth, or the fact that none of us can live without water, and eventually, and it's happening too fast and has to be stopped. I don't. Then the fact that the governments are powerless to do anything because of this, because these corporations like that are too large, and in strategic alliance with other ones, the people who make the rules are global organizations like the World Trade Organization. Our own government is powerless to do anything about it. But how could you watch something like this without saying something about it? Maybe it's the way I said it, but I felt like that's it's some kind of it would be immoral not to comment. And this is the wrong information in an hour-long program about India.